How's it going, everyone? Sony just announced their 2023 TV lineup, so we're going to cover all the models. So now, in the announcement video that they did, they only showed the high-end enthusiast models, but they did announce the lower tier ones, so we'll cover those as well, and we'll go through all of the information that's out there that they didn't show in their video as well. So, starting with the high-end LCD model, the X95L. This replaces last year's X95K, coming in at 65, 75, and 85 inches. They set up to 20% more zones, and of course, it'll be a bit brighter, but overall, not that much different, it seems, than last year's X95K. We'll just have to see how the local dimming works and if they've made improvements to that from last year. And then also last year, the 85 inch outperformed the 75 and 65. I imagine that'll probably be the same this year, but we will have to wait and see on that. So it's still using XR processor. However, this year they did say that the XR got improvements to the upscaling and noise reduction. We'll see how that works out as well. But that's pretty much it about the X95L. It's not necessarily a carryover, it's improved, but it's not a major improvement over last year. Now, the X90L, this one I think has potential to be more improved or a bigger jump over last year, coming in at 55, 65, 75, 85, and 98. So the 98 is really interesting to me. If you remember, the X92J was their 100-inch model that came in at $20,000. So them changing to the 98-inch panel means it's a different panel, and this is the same panel that would be used in the TCL 98 and the Samsung 98-inch models. Um, so there's potential here for this to be much more affordable. And when I say that, I still mean it's going to be at least 10 plus $1,000, but at least it's moving the bar down. No prices were announced. It's just me purely guessing and speculating what would make sense. Money wise would be for it to be around the 12, maybe 15 at most $1,000 range. And then that would mean, at the end of the year when it's time for them to clear out, they could potentially drop under 10 grand if that were to be the case. Again, that's speculation. Um, but based on this being their, step down model and dropping to the 98-inch panel that is available in TCLs for, you know, well under 10 grand, um, there's potential there. So we'll keep an eye on that one. As for the rest of them, they set up to I believe, 60% increase in zones. It is still full array local dimming, not mini LED. However, that really doesn't mean much for the performance of it. So I expect this to perform pretty well with good contrast. Again, same XR processor, um, but they've added functionality, I guess, for the Bravia cam. I've never used that. I think it's kind of a gimmick, but it's there. This does also support the game menu that they've added this year for their TVs. So we'll talk about the game menu here in a bit. But that pretty much covers the X90L. Now over to the OLEDs. The A95L is the QD OLED replacement for the A95K, now coming in 55, 65, and 77. There is a new stand. It is no longer that big, wide, flat stand that came out the front of the back of the TV that I really did not like last year. So the stand alone is an improvement. Having these legs, there's three different options for installing them. You got the low profile. You can raise it up for a sound bar and whatnot. You can also, it looks like, put them towards the middle if you have a smaller table for the TV. Now, again, same thing with the XR. However, this is the only model in 2023 for Sony that's going to use the new pentonic chip for the HDMI. So that means this is the only one that's going to support the multi-view, where you can have side-by-side images, and then it's the only one that will do 4K 120 Dolby Vision. Now, that does not necessarily mean that there's a Dolby Vision game mode with low input lag, but it does mean you won't have to go in and change the HDMI setting when you want Dolby Vision or you want to switch to a 4K 120 game like you've had to do in the past on Sony TVs and on all the other models this year for Sony. So that is I very kind of disappointing that that is not the case for all the models this year, or at least the high end ones. It's only the A95L that gets pentonic. So that's pretty disappointing. Um, so let's move on to the A80L. So this is replacing the A80K. This is WRGB OLED. There is no MLA on these. 55, 65, 77, and 83-inch sizes. So this means the A80L 83 is going to be the only 83 model to replace the A90J 83, and there's no heatsink on these. So we'll see how that does. Their marketing is saying 110% improvement brightness over last year. So what that really means is 100% would be even. So you're really gaining a 10% bump. So pretty much this is just getting on par with the 2021 A80J 77 inch. Because if you remember last year with the A80K, it was actually a slight downgrade compared to the A80J at 77 inches. So this seems to be just putting it back where it was with the A80J. Hopefully, there's some better cooling in the design where there's less image retention, because that was a problem on the A80J and the A80K. Not long term, burn in type, but I just mean image retention of watching something and the scene changes and then it'll be still bright in that spot. So again, same thing, same XR processor, does get the game menu. Bravia Cam is an option. So that's their pretty much main announcements. So let me close this out. And now we will go find some more information. All right, so now we're going to go to Flat Panels HD and look at the rest of the models and some more about the X95L and the X90L. See here that, again, the X95L is the only mini LED model. The X90 and the X85 are full array local dimming. The X85 continues to use the old X1 processor. And while it supports 4K 120, do note that all of the X1 processor Sony TVs in the past that have supported 4K 120 would cut the resolution in half in order to do so. So that's why I generally do not recommend the X85 series. And then we have the X80 and X75WL. So these are 60 hertz TVs, and they're lower tier, and generally I don't really recommend those very often. So the X95 and X90 are the main ones to consider. So we already covered the sizes for them. The 98-inch X90L has these big grab handles on the back to make it easier for moving and setting up. And then let's see. So yeah, 20% more zones and up to 30% brighter than the X95K for the X95L. I'm curious to know if the algorithm, because last year what would happen is if one zone had to light up for a bright object, the neighboring zone next to it would also light up. And then that's what created a little bit of extra blooming on the X95K. So hopefully they've changed that. The X90L, again, I think this one is getting a little bit more love. This is their main bread and butter. This is a higher volume of sales TV for them, is the 90 series. So you're getting a 30% brightness bump with 60% more dimming zones. So that, again, the 98 inch is what's interesting to me, but even the smaller sizes, whatever you can fit, I think that's going to be a good performing model for the price. It generally is with the X90 series. So here's what the game menu looks like. We have VRR, saying if it's on or off. We have motion blur reduction. So that is most likely the BFI just being an easy toggle right there. However, I did see one place suggest that it could be motion interpolation, kind of like what Samsung does, but I'm guessing it's just the BFI. Then we have the black equalizer, which is pretty much similar to what LG and Samsung have had, where you can bump shadow detail with that. Built-in crosshair in the center of the screen, what Samsung is doing now as well. You can change how the crosshair looks, and then we have screen size adjustment. So if you're using it for a monitor and you want to sit closer and make the screen smaller, reposition it, you can do that. Um, and then there's a screen size setting here, and that's where you reposition. So here's an image showing how that works. So if you want to move it to the bottom, move it in the middle, however you want to put it. And then here's uh, just some more information for each model. You can see, pretty sure all of them have um, a similar stand with two legs. Yeah, I don't think anything's using anything other than a two-leg design. Um, Again, the only the A95L QD OLED will have the Dolby Vision 120 support. So where these say Dolby Vision, chances are on these you're still going to have to toggle between having Dolby Vision turned on the HDMI port or turning it off to have 4K 120 for the models that do support that. And that appears to pretty much be it for the LCD models that we know now. Um, I did see the new remote. It's basically the same as last year, except they've added two more quick buttons, one for YouTube, one for Crunchyroll. And if you don't get the model with the premium remote, it appears that they've made it a glossy black plastic for the rest. And that is a terrible, terrible decision because it will just, as soon as you touch it, leave fingerprints and dust. And I don't know why they would go glossy black on a remote, which is a high touch object. That is a just a crazy decision to me. Yeah, so just to recap the OLEDs a little bit here. Um, A95L, the flagship QD OLED with pentonic. That one's definitely getting most of their attention. The A80L just continues pretty much to be the same as the A80 series has been, more or less. Like I said, it seems like they might be just bumping the performance a little bit to pretty much go back in line with the A80J. Um, they are now offering it in 83, but no heatsink, obviously. Um, yeah, not much else to say about it. So for the QD OLED A95L 77-inch, that's the main draw, is there being a 77-inch option now and having this pentonic chip. Hopefully they add a Dolby Vision game mode with low input lag, but we will have to see if that actually happens or not. It could, like I said, just be that you don't have to do the switching now. So uh, I don't know. Not having too much hope for the gaming stuff on these because obviously there's no mention of dimming because they won't ever actually mention that or admit to that. But I am not holding my breath that there will be a way to disable the dimming in game mode, which is the biggest issue for the Sony TVs, in my opinion. Um, I believe they were claiming up to 200% brightness, which means double because 100% would be the same. So a 200% means they're claiming double brightness over the A95K, which was 1,000 its peak. Um, I don't see it doing 2,000 nits in any kind of accurate mode. It might burst 2,000 nits in vivid or something for a few seconds, but I expect it to be probably in the 1,400 nit range. Say 13 to 1,500 in your typical window measurements for peak at a D65. And then full field measurements where they were a bit over around 200 nits with the A95K. I expect that to probably get up to about maybe 250, possibly a little bit higher than that. I don't expect it to be brighter than the S95C or the G3. Um, do 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 do. Yeah, that pretty much seems to cover it. There's some eco mode updates that, the first thing you do when you're setting it up is disable eco mode, at least if you're watching this channel and you're a TV enthusiast. Um, so there's not much to cover there. And yeah, that's basically covering it all. So I think it's overall pretty much what most of us expected. No surprises, nothing that really stands out. A lot of people have been wanting the game bar, so you got that. Personally, I never use the game bar because, if you're an accuracy person, you set it in that and you play and watch everything in that accurate mode, and that's it. You don't change anything. So the game bar doesn't really mean anything to me. Not having to switch the HDMI port on the A95L, assuming that it is set up that way, that's a nicety to have. But there were ways around dealing with that before. And even with it having pentonic, as we all know at this point, it's still only two HDMI 2.1 ports, one of which is shared with eARC. So if you have a receiver or soundbar, that's going to use one of them. Um, yeah, there's not much else to say here. So that's Sony's lineup for 2023. I think the 77-inch A95L and 98-inch X90L are the main ones that I will be looking forward to. Um, and the again, I think the rest of the X90L and A95L series will still be good if those are the sizes you need. Um, but that's it. So thank you all for watching, and I hope this helps you out. And I'll catch you in the next one. See ya.